we're talking about know your zones. So I talk a lot about being in the right zones, whether it be power, heart rate. Sometimes you use pace, depending on what you're looking at. So it's a way to know where you're at during your workout. So you kind of know the level of effort. There's different ways you can use that, different information. There's different theories on what's better, what's not. For biking, is power better, is heart rate better? We're not really going to get into that. What I want to get into is kind of the nuts and bolts of how do you know your zones? There are many different ways you can do calculations. There's calculators online. You can take your age minus your 220 minus your age or something like that for heart rate zones for running and biking. There's different calculations too, but it's not really based on you. It's based on historical information out there, averages just over the population, and it's better than nothing, but it's not very accurate, especially for you and your given fitness. So if you're at the higher pointy end of the age group field or other, and you're a little bit more fitness oriented than others out there, maybe just starting out, your zones are going to be a little bit different than a person maybe just starting out, or maybe medical conditions. If you're on something that regulates your heart rate a little bit and kind of maxes you out, your zones could be wildly different. So what I'm going to go over is how to specifically calculate these. There's going to be a little bit of me talking here just to go through the bullet points, and then I'm going to switch over to my computer. You can see my screen. I did my zone test last week, kind of ramping up for I'm in Tulsa, finding out where I'm at for my off season while I do my off season build. So that will lead you to be able to kind of go on your own, and you're all members. You're signed up, you're watching this video, you have access to all these tools. If you can't find them, let me know. I can always point you in the right direction. But you can go online, you sign on with your membership to setthepacetriathlon.com. Go into the members area, you can go into workouts. It's all listed in there. You can see all the tests and everything I'm going to show you. The spreadsheets, you should have access to the zone calculators. If not, let me know and I can get you access to those. And then the spreadsheet I'm going to show you where I actually put my data and stuff for tracking purposes, that's not necessarily something that's available. And we're going to go down the line. I'm going to publish something a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more accurate to have out there for other people to look at. But this is typically what we're going for. Know your zone for swim, bike, and run. Swim's a little bit difficult because you can't really track your zones. You can, but you don't want to like stop in the middle of a swim and kind of look at your heart rate. They do have straps to record the data, but typically what it does is records it while you're swimming because it cannot transmit data to your watch underwater. So if you're underwater with your heart rate strapped the entire time, you're not going to know that information until it syncs with your watch when you're out of the water. And you have to retroactively go look at what's more historical than actual in the moment information. So the swim test, fitness test that I use is just going a 500, either meter, yards, whatever pool you have to work with, all out for time. So you do a little bit of warm up, and you go out there and you just swim 500 the best you can and try to get through it. You know, after you do a few tests, you kind of figure out how to kind of start pace yourself at the first instead of just going all out first and being filled with gas by the end or possibly not be able to finish the 500. But you can use heart rate. You can download that data and kind of find your zones. But again, it's not going to really help you in a race. It's not going to really help you in training. It's more so just historical information. I usually use the pace for your 500 as a fitness marker so you can kind of plot that over time and see how your pace is going either up or down as you're going along, see if you're making improvements in technique or speed work or anything like that. And we're going to say the bike, going over that is a separate one. That takes a little bit longer because you're looking at power, you're looking at heart rate, a little bit more tricky with that information. So the next video that we do, we'll be going over just bike specifically. But for the run, I have a fitness test where you do a little bit of warm up, a little bit of dynamic warm up, and 1.5 miles all out. So you could do, I typically like to do on a treadmill, so it's controlled atmosphere, pretty much the same. Most places you go, it's going to be the 75, 80 degree range inside, if you're summer, winter, whatever. But it's being controlled atmosphere, air conditioning, you're on a treadmill. I put the incline at 1.0 every time. But it's a little bit hard because you control the pace. So as you go through, you either up it or lower it depending on where you're at. So we'll kind of go over this in my results. I think at the end I had a little bit more I could have done because my average heart rate, my threshold heart rate didn't get up as high as normally it would if maybe I was going outside. You can do it on a track, but then you have to make sure the conditions are pretty similar. You go out and do it at 75 degrees and then 100% humidity in one morning, and then you do it kind of in the fall and it's 50 degrees with 50% humidity, that's going to drastically affect your heart rate and could change your information. So you want to try to do these tests in similar conditions. Same for the swimming. Water's water usually, but maybe a 50-meter pool versus a 25-yard pool, you're going to have a little bit of different data because there's more turns involved. So whatever you do, make sure it's controlled and it's the same situation for each time as much as possible. That's why I like for run, you can do treadmills as long as the speed's a little iffy, because treadmill to treadmill, if it's not calibrated right, the speed could be a little off. So you gotta have to take the speed with a grain of salt, but you can get good heart rate data out of there. So your average is going to be the threshold heart rate that you use to calculate your zones. And then like I said, I have the calculator. I use Joe Friel's zones that he sets up. He, part of the creator of Training Peaks. And that's going to be in the nutshell kind of what we cover for this little talk. So swim and run, and then later we'll hit the bike. So I'm going to switch over to my screen. And hopefully this shows. I apologize. We'll go back and I'll check it later. If I have to redo it, I will. So we'll get this guy out of here. So basically, show you the tests. So these are the tests that I do. So I've got a run test. And hold on, we'll pull up. And again, we're going along. You got any questions or anything like that, make sure to hit me up. We'll show you any information that you guys need. And then, so this is the run test. So you see, it's not just going out and running a 1.5 miles up straight out. You got a little warm up, a little bit dynamic warm up, and a little bit of an easy run just to kind of get going, and then 1.5 miles all out. So it's basically the first time you do it, you may kind of experiment, how to do the speed and pacing and stuff like that. But basically at the end of the run, you want to be totally gassed, everything you got. The swim test is a little bit similar. You can do a little bit of warm up, and then you do your 500 just all out for time. So it's pretty straightforward. So what's nice is when you get done, you should be able to go to Training Peaks, and there's your data. So I've highlighted my little sections. You can easily go there. I do take the auto lap function off for my watch for the run, just so it does an auto lap at 1 mile or whatever. So I get that 1.5, and this was kind of nice on the treadmill. It actually kind of matched up pretty good. So 1.49 was 1.5 on the treadmill. Intensity factor 1.18. So that's where I was a little questionable. Average heart rate of 151. I expect my average to be 166. If I run a half, usually I'm in the 165 range for the whole race. So it's a little bit suspect. So that kind of tells me maybe I have a little bit more that I could up to speed at the end, because as you see, I was moving the speed up. So we'll go back, and like I said, it's just a snapshot over time. So we'll go through later, and I'll do tests every 4 to 5 weeks. Block of training, I'll go back and do some tests just to see if there's any fitness gains or anything. So what you can do is go to Training Peaks. You can go and hit this section, or you can just look on your data from Garmin, whichever works best for you. Find out for this little lap, your average heart rate is 151, zone calculator. So this right here are your zones. So 0, 128 is zone 1, where you're not really doing much. 130, 134 is my zone 2. Tempo 136, 142. Notice these are pretty narrow zones. I mean, 4 beats a minute. That's where getting into little sketchy, for lack of a better term, because when you're out there, it's hard. You're probably lagging anyway in your heart rate, so the effort you're putting out doesn't match your heart rate that's showing up on your watch. It takes a minute for it to catch up. And when you're aiming for a range that's about 4 beats per minute, it's kind of hard to hit that. So it's hard to draw a line in the sand and say, once you get over 134, you need to slow down, because that's lagging data. So you may have already slowed down. But basically, I could have put zone 2 and 3 together when you're doing a race. You don't want to go over 142 if you're doing a half marathon, full marathon, whatever you're doing. Lactate threshold, this is when you're really starting to get into it, 143, 149. VO2 max, 151, 154. So that's where you're really killing it. And then anaerobic capacity, 156. So that's like you're doing your 30-second all-out intervals, stuff like that at the track. So you could take that data, go over to your profile, go to your zones, and don't know the last time I checked my. I hate these default heart rate zones. I usually just zero them out for my athletes because it's just like kind of worthless. So run, add, threshold 151. And I go with my max, so it's 166. Was good. I would put all this information in. So on my run zone calculator, I kind of did a little bit of fudge factor. 89 to 90. Now it's that back. So it's just kind of tough. You know, you got your 0 to 89, you're jumping right up. 85, 86, 89. I do 90 and 91 to give you a little bit of wiggle room. Because like I said, it's not an exact science. It's a little bit better than just taking your heart or 220 minus your heart rate or your age to get your threshold heart rate. It's a little bit more accurate. 95 to 99, 100. So basically, once you get in zone 5, you're I kind of lump it all together. So my average test was 151 for the run, and I forgot to get the rest of the data off of there. Miles, max 166. Speed 622. And it's kind of questionable on treadmills what the speed was. So I keep it for posterity just to kind of look at the information to see if there's any value in it whatsoever. Well, like I said, it kind of matched up to the treadmill pretty good. And this speed is off of my Phoenix 5X Plus. So it actually matched up pretty good. So that was pretty encouraging. So then you got your zones. And this is the data. I put it on my second screen. It's got your zone. I put my resting one as 40. Let's do real lactate threshold. Let's just see if it matches up. So maximum heart rate. So notice there's different calculators. Like I said, I used Joe Friel. I don't think he does. Let's see if Joe Friel lactate threshold 122. Joe Friel for running. Yeah, there we go. So that pretty much matches up to my calculator that I have. So it's saved, so I don't go anywhere. So then every time I do a workout, it will compare this. And you also need to go to Garmin Connect and change that in your profile. Because if you change it in Training Peaks, it'll show up for your Training Peaks. But when you're actually doing your workouts and stuff, it won't show your zones and information correctly. So you need to go into Garmin Connect and change that as well. So that was run data. Just leave it up there just in case you need to get back. So going back, and then we go to your swim. So my swim for 500 yards was 7:12. Pull my zone thing in there. So let's see if we can put those tabs back together. Done with the run, and it automatically calculates my average pace of 100 yard. So if you want to see what it was for meters, I got a little converter. So you got 7.2 minutes per 500 yards. Life back in the day in engineering. So this would have been, So I'm just converting that to make sure I had this right. So that's 144. So we want to take this, because that is in yards, and we want to divide it by conversion. So we got 135 per 100 meter. So there you go. So now you have this data. I put my data in here. Later on, I'm going to add through a section, a little graph, and as I plot these, you can find kind of what your historical data is. Do you take a little bit of dip in the off season? Do you take a little bit of dip during the season? If you're overtraining, it's kind of good information to have. If your body's just tired and sore and you're not giving enough rest, your average speed, you will not adapt and recover from the drills you're doing and from the speed work, and your time will not progress, or it'll get slower. So that's a good indicator too. If you're feeling a little tired, run down, but at the end of the day, everything, you're just not finding speed, maybe you need to take a step back and look at how much recovery you're getting. So that's basically, in a nutshell. You can go back and do, let's see, run heart rate, power. I'll remove the, I'm using my default speeds. Use my Training Peaks athlete account. So swim, you can do second burst. Running, that's not going to work. Do 80-20 swimming. So, I mean, you could put them in there. CTS field test. I mean, they got a ton of different things. You can kind of play with and use this information. One point. If it does this. There we go. Yeah, that doesn't even work. So threshold speed. So I put it on 126, calculate. So, I mean, you can see these and it'll give you information as you do your workouts and Training Peaks. So you can kind of see what your thresholds are, but like I said, it's kind of the fact deal. So this is more of a looking at your current fitness, where it's at, kind of the trend over time to see if you're making improvements or not. So that basically wraps it up. Hopefully you found this information useful, not too confusing. If you got any questions, like I said, always email me back, put a comment somewhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, and we'll get you set up and make your fitness testing and zone finding as painless as